Hi, Sarah. Um,
Hi, Nauroze.
it's good
I'm
to
so
see you.
I'm so glad you have your mobile phone so that we can see each other, even though I haven't been able to visit you since March because of COVID-19.
Yes, and see, this is something which a lot of Australians do understand that now. The challenges which people in immigration detention face, um, given that like we have no visits due to the ban on the visits since March until further notice. And I mean, if we didn't have the mobiles, people wouldn't have been able to see and understand the sufferings the humans, the 1,300 odd humans in detention go through.
Yeah, I think something Australians really don't realize is that there are people in detention here who have children. They have wives, they have husbands, they have mothers, they have fathers, they have sisters, they have brothers, they have best friends. And, you know, without being able to see those people, without being able to hug those people, the mobile phones, they're not just a lifeline for people in detention, they're a lifeline for everyone who loves them. I mean, you've seen in Villawood, we've played with so many children on the playgrounds who are there, including my daughter, by the way. We've played with so many kids who are in there visiting loved ones, who are in there visiting mom, who are in there visiting dad, grandpa, auntie, uncle. And already these kids are confused and traumatized because suddenly a family member or a loved one has disappeared out of their lives and they can only see them behind razor wire under, strict supervision of security guards. So already these family members are suffering extreme trauma. It's not just the detainees.
Yes, and I remember couple of months back, before any of this coronavirus hit, one of the detainees who was detained at Yonga Hill, he was brought to Villawood because his mother had passed away. And luckily, thanks to the mobile, not saying, I mean, at least, at least because of the mobile, he was able to attend like uh, the funeral services and his religious and cultural practices through the ability of a mobile phone video call. Because when Serco guards did take them to the funeral, but they handcuffed him.
Yeah.
Imagine going like ask Australian people, imagine yourself going to pay your last respects to your deceased mother and you're handcuffed. You can't even hug your dead mother for the last time because you're handcuffed. So, I mean, what majority of the Australians people need to understand that um, the people in detention, a vast majority of them have Australian family connections. They
Yeah.
were part of the Australian community. And with this mobile phone legislation, ever since Alan Tudge started talking about it, started selling his false propaganda, his propaganda was successfully exposed and debunked on social media and everywhere, and not even his own supporters buy what he's selling.
Yeah. And I really love how enthusiastically Christina Keneally has come after him and actually said, look, Australian people aren't as stupid as you think they are. No
Yeah,
one is buying this. I really appreciate her for that.
yeah.
But
Now,
sorry, you go.
now, Christina Kennelly and Senator Nick and even Senator Rex Patrick and Senator Griffin, they took a public stand because they listened. Unlike the LNP party, these people listened to the wishes of the Australian public that no, don't take their phones away. They're already being tortured enough in detention centers, indefinitely locked up without any release date. And you could see today that all the speeches, and even yesterday, all the speeches being given by the ALP senators and parliamentarians, and I mean, from the Greens, our Senator Nick McKim has been, an absolute legend and a voice for human rights.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, with the visits, like it's already draconian even when the visits are on. You remember
I
the
know.
time?
Okay, which time? Because we've got so many crazy visit stories, like me having my individual tampons scanned as I come in to visit you, and you're like, oh my God, hi, how are you? And I'm like, big hug, they scanned my tampons. And you're like, what? So already when you have the visits, it's a profoundly unnatural environment. You know, again, I'm bringing it back to the children because I'm a mom and I can't help that. But then you take the visits away. I mean, you and I are best friends, and we've gone to twice daily phone calls. We talk after lunch and we talk after dinner, just so that we can get by, both of us, on both sides of the razor wire, so that we can get by without our visits. I cannot imagine what it would be like to not be able to speak to you every day. And, you know, you're not my husband, you're not my son, you're not my brother, but this, you know, this is an every person issue, both in the community and the people who have been marginalized by being put in detention. Everyone around this issue is going to suffer.
Yeah, it's I mean, there were like hundreds of submissions to the Senate committee examining this legislation, and as one of the good MPs from Labor pointed it out yesterday, that every single one of those submissions from Australian Human Rights Commission, from United Nations, from various legal bodies, various legal Australian bodies, said that this legislation is garbage and should be thrown in the dustbin and should not be made into the law. And the
Shout out to Josh Burns. Thanks for that, mate.
Yeah, and the only two people or the organizations who made submission in support of it were the Department of Home Affairs and Circle Group.
Yeah. The reality is, you know, parliamentary privilege is a hell of a thing. And, you know, it has a double meaning in certain cases. And this comes down to Senator Jackie Lambie. And if she votes for this legislation, if she allows families to be forcibly separated, kids to cut contact with their moms and their dads, brothers and sisters to not be able to speak on FaceTime, husbands and wives never to see each other's faces. The privilege that Senator Lambie has here is she gets to create victims without ever having to look them in the eye. And I really hope that she votes knowing that this legislation will create victims. It will increase trauma in men, women, and children. It will tear families apart who have already been torn apart beyond their capacity to cope. It will create self-harm and suicide attempts and suicides on both sides of the razor wire. This is an Australian community issue. It's not just a detention issue. So Senator Lambie needs to vote with her conscience, knowing this information. She cannot pretend she doesn't know. And if she doesn't, then she needs to do her research and honour the Australian public in voting with full knowledge of what she's voting for or against.
Absolutely. And look, these people, these 1,300 of us, we're not asking that, oh, set us free. Senator Lambie, just this vote will put 1,300 of us into the community. We're just asking, we're already locked up in razor wires. I'm locked up without charge in arbitrary detention, which has been proven to be arbitrary. The full federal court has ruled in my favor. Human rights ombudsman both called for my release, still being kept as a political prisoner. Look, I'm not asking to put 1,300 of them into the community. We're just asking, we're already locked up. At least, let us keep our mobiles so we can look and see our loved ones on a video call.
And so that they can see you. Because honestly, the mobiles and the FaceTime, that's all everyone is left with. That is all that we have left with that tenuous connection between human beings that in total creates humanity. Yeah. And I know it sounds like I'm a bleeding heart lefty when I say that. You know what? I don't give a shit. Like, yes, I'm a lefty, but I'm also from bloody Queensland. And I know that Jackie Lambie, she speaks her mind. She doesn't mince words. And this legislation is un-Australian. We do not forcibly separate parents and children from even seeing each other's faces in this country. We don't separate mates from even seeing each other's faces in this country. We don't stop brothers and sisters, parents and children from seeing each other's faces in this country. It is un-Australian. And we need Senator Lambie to vote against this legislation. Otherwise, what does it mean to be Australian? What does it mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. And as a lot, also, I wish to point out, as a lot of organizations have pointed out that we're in administrative detention, and having a mobile and right to communication and a freedom of political expression is our human right.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter you're on the right side of the politics, in the center, or on the left. That all comes later, because human rights is the base of everything else. It is like, I mean, you have a human right, not because you're white, rich, or pretty. You have a human right because you're
You
human.
were born. Because you were literally born. So that is the very, very baseline that we are working with here, that we are asking Senator Lambie to uphold. We are asking her to uphold the human rights that every single human on this planet was born with. Do not go below that bar. That is incredibly dangerous.
Absolutely. And look, even during this coronavirus crisis, we don't even know when the visits are actually going to get resumed.
I know.
Like,
there are children who literally don't know when they're going to see their mother or their father again. And we know those children personally.
Yeah. And look, this legislation has got nothing to do with national security. This legislation is about
nothing. And can I just chuck in a personal story? One of my friends in detention, his ex has an AVO against him. He allegedly sent a message to her on Facebook. The police came in within 2 hours, arrested him, took him to the police cells in Melbourne. He was there for 10 days. He went to court. He was taken to jail. He went to court again. He served a 3-month jail sentence, put back in detention. So when a crime is committed using a mobile phone, the police come in and they deal with it. So everything that Alan Tudge has been saying and that Christina Keneally has been rebutting, you know, he's lying. She is telling the truth. And you and I both know from lived experience that we do not need this legislation to prevent crimes from being committed using mobile phones. We don't need it.
Absolutely. And I think the excuse which Alan Tudge is doing is so ridiculous and so flimsy. He's like, oh, it takes too long to call the police. Like, what's next? Do you want to like privatize the police and give the contract to Sergor?
My mate got picked up in 2 hours. 2 hours. He didn't even get a chance to call me. I got a call from his lawyer.
Yeah.
So that is a blatant lie that I'm a personal witness to and I've lived through.
Absolutely. And it's the further they want to give the Serco thugs, I mean, the power to strip search men, women, and children whenever they like. And the amount of, without mentioning any names, the amount of sexual assaults these Serco thugs have committed. As a matter of fact, the sexual assaults, we don't have the data, exact data, the number of actual number of sexual assaults these guards have committed. But going by the media stories, there's a number of them. And then the number which the department did disclose on question and notice to the Senate committee was regarding how many Serco guards are under investigation for being involved in criminal activities in detention center. And the department responded like with a number of them are under current investigation, some of them since bloody 2018 or something.
I mean, and you know that I spend a lot of time with women and children who are medically evacuated from Nauroze. And before they were in the situation they were in now, they were in Villawood. They were in APODs under Serco guards. I personally know women and children who have been assaulted by Australian Serco guards in Australia who have still not reported this because they're too afraid, because they don't have visas. They don't want to rock the boat. So the number could potentially be exponential, actually.
Absolutely, and there's no transparency in the investigation process either, because first of all, they talk about, oh, it takes too long for the guards to call the police. We can't even call the fucking police.
Yeah.
Pardon my language, but we can't. I mean, a person can be down here, and you call 000. Number one, circle guards won't let the police in,
Yeah.
right? And if
I
you call the
called
police
an
station,
ambulance for you. Remember when you were in Younger Hill? I
yeah,
called an ambulance for you because IHMS was refusing to treat you for chest pains. Turns out now that you've got cardiac issues, among other things. And they sent the ambulance away. They
and
sent them
the
away.
and at Yunga Hill IDC, I think the manager at the time, he came in with like about 8 ERT cards to tell me, do not call the ambulance again. Tell your friend not to call the
For
ambulance
lay
again.
people, ERT is emergency response team. They
Mm.
are decked out like riot police. We are talking face masks, batons, vests, everything, all in black. Fucking terrifying.
And
So that was the
these,
response to Nauroze needing an ambulance. Can you imagine if he didn't have a phone? He couldn't have told me that he wasn't receiving treatment and he was having a medical emergency.
yeah,
He might not be alive now.
absolutely. And tell you what, I did survive about 2 years in Christmas Island. And when I didn't have a mobile phone, or anybody had a mobile phone at the time, in those 2 years, I saw circle ERT cards on Christmas Island Detention Center, and MIDC in Christmas Island. Those circle ERT cards used to take detainees to blind spots, switch their body cameras off, and used to bash detainees so seriously, leaving some of them with serious trauma.
I have
And I mean,
very close to me, as Nauroze knows, and I'm not going to cite who those people are, but they saw the exact same thing. And they told me this before I even met you, Nauroze. So these stories are not uncommon. And that's what we're looking at now if mobile phones are taken from detainees. It's going to be a full-on Lord of the Flies situation in there, and it's already bordering on it. Take away phones and you take away accountability. It's as simple as that.
look, every center in Australia, every detention center is under different management, and every center is run differently. So, for completeness, as my viewers know, I mean, I tell the brutal truth, and I tell how it is. And with the Villawood management, it has been comparatively better to all the other centers.
Yeah, Villa was
Um,
best.
Villawood is the better ones, and like the center manager Don Taylor, he likes to keep things in order, and he puts his ERT guards for doing the wrong thing in place. But I can't say the same about Yunga Hill or Christmas Island. Those two detention centers were the worst of the worst. I think Yunga Hill was, even it's common knowledge, even in border force circles, that the management of Yunga Hill is run by white supremacists who literally get a kick out of bashing detainees. And I saw like 4 people that had some kind of interaction with them in detention take their own lives.
Yep.
Um,
I remember when you were on. I don't know if I can bring this up. When the guard was telling you to kill yourself.
Oh yeah, that's that was Younger Hill.
Yeah, in Younger Hill, there was one of the guards who was just saying to you every time he saw you, just kill yourself, just get it done, mate, just get it over with, just fucking kill yourself, and hurling racial abuse at you.
Yeah.
And again, no mobile phones to record, no accountability. You know, I've been on FaceTime with you when you've been being stalked by a guard all around your compound in Younger Hill. He was following you 3 meters behind you. You were having a cigarette, and I could see him just stalking you. There was no one else around. That's what we're looking at without mobile phones. If Nauroze hadn't been on the phone to me at the time, God knows what that guard would have done. And I know what he did to Nauroze previously, but we're not going there. So unless Nauroze wants to. So I mean, it's a matter of public record.
Yeah, it's just on the public record. But the thing is, with this circle guards, why are they elevated above literally even the federal police? They have so many protections, literally immune from any criminal prosecution. Because Australian Federal Police can be video recorded, state police can be video recorded, even the bloody PM can be video recorded. So what is so special? Somebody needs to answer me. What is so special about the Serco Govts that they cannot be video recorded while they're committing an actual crime?
I think that's a really good question for Alan Tudge. So maybe if Senator Keneally would consider asking him that, that would be a really good place to start that dialogue.
Absolutely, because let's be honest, this LNP government is not doing the bidding of the Australian people. They are doing the bidding of this multi-billion-dollar English company called Serco Group, because LNP has vested interest to protect their billion-dollar contractor and its reputation, because Serco has been brutally exposed or for breaking international and domestic laws and being committing crimes and being documented doing that. And
in so many countries.
Yeah.
In so many countries, it isn't just Australia. This isn't just hearsay. Like, this is something that is well documented and, is being seen around the world. So,
look, it's a company which profits on human suffering.
And they can't be left unsupervised with vulnerable human beings who have limited contact with the outside world already. That is plain and simple.
Absolutely.
And it comes down to Senator Lambie. This is her choice. Is she going to leave them with unchecked power to do whatever they want? Or is she going to do the right thing and demand accountability?
This is all about accountability, and this legislation, anybody who supports it will be committing a political suicide, because this is going to go on the history books that who stood on the right side of history and for human rights. This is mobile phone is our lifeline. There are no ifs or buts. It is a universally accepted truth.
Absolutely. And wait for the class action from the children whose parents are in immigration detention. These kids are already in therapy. They're already struggling at school. They're already self-harming. They're already attempting suicide because Border Force rocked up at their home that's meant to be their safe place one day and took their mum or their dad. So do you want to take away their capacity to actually speak face-to-face with mum or dad? Watch for the class action in 10 or 15 years' time, because that one is going to be massive and it's coming.
And this is one of those things which people are not going to forget, that who voted for it and who voted against it. And Senator,
she has a chance to create a legacy now. She's an independent, she does nobody's bidding, apparently. And every vote she makes is a vote for the history books. So which side of history does she want to be on? Does she want to be on baseless, unfounded lies and cruelty? Or does she want to be on the side of humanity and good and accountability and making sure the law is upheld? Because actually mobile phones are the thing making sure the law is upheld. They're not against that.
Absolutely. Look, Jackie Lambie promised to fight for the underdog, for the battler. This is a chance to walk the talk and stand with us. And this legislation, I can't emphasize that enough, that the lives of 1,300 humans in detention and their loved ones is depending on it.
Yeah.
And this is not a legislation which can be which is even debatable. Like, just okay, if he doesn't want to listen to us, listen to the legal advice, listen to the hundreds of submissions from all the way from a Commonwealth bodies to legal bodies to United Nations,
as opposed to the two. As opposed to the
Serco Group, who was obviously got a vested agenda. I mean, I tell you what, when I made the submission, I made a submission to the Senate committee, which is published on their website, and I pointed out the corruption within the Department of Home Affairs agencies. And I said, look, why don't you take away the phones of these people who have committed crimes within Department of Home Affairs?
Yeah.
And I pointed out the corruption in Serco Group.
Even police officers. There was another story in the media today. Police officer charged with possessing child pornography. So take away all police officers' phones, right? Right.
Absolutely. And look, even Australian Federal Police gave a response to my Senate submissions, and the response is available on the Senate website, and on my Twitter account, and on my Patreon. And Australian Federal Police pretty much validated every single thing I've said, and they confirmed all the corruption matters I've raised, and they confirmed that those matters are indeed under investigation by the independent watchdog. So this is a crystal clear and black and white, guys. This is a life and death legislation.
There's no gray area, none.
Senator Lambie has the choice to either switch off our life support machine or support us to have this lifeline, which literally keeps us alive. And
keeps us alive. It's both sides of the razor wire. It's the Australian community and the detainees.
Absolutely.
This won't just have a ripple effect. This will have a tsunami effect. So I really hope Senator Lambie deeply considers what she's voting for before she unleashes that tsunami.
Absolutely. And look, I believe in Senator Lambie doing the right thing. And I can't for a second imagine her doing the wrong thing on this legislation. At the end of the day, she's a human. She's got PTSD. She knows how having a PTSD feels like. I've got PTSD, and so does other humans in detention, and she surely can't leave us without a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Look, let's look forward to it. Let's see. We invite Jackie Lambie to make history. Yes. We invite her to make history and stand on the right side of history.
Absolutely. And if Senator Lambie supports the detainees, their friends, their families, their loved ones, we will not forget that. We will always back her. There are people who actually are eligible to vote who will back her just out of sheer gratitude for supporting us on this. So it's not a thankless task. We will never, ever forget this. If she continues this lifeline for us, we are in debt to her, and we will never forget.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. And we'll talk again after this legislation for viewers. We'll talk every day, 2 times.
We'll talk after breakfast.
All right, guys. We'll keep you updated how things go. And if you're watching this,
great to see you all. Lots of love. Please be kind to one another, not in the Ellen DeGeneres fake way, in the genuine kind to one another way. Yep.
All right, guys. And if you're watching this, give a call to Jackie Lambie. If you don't get through to her, send her an email and ask her to block this legislation. Thank you.